Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and bring this regular City Council meeting to order. If you would all rise for the invocation, which tonight will be led by Pastor Karen Liddell from the Christ the King Lutheran Church. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Vice Mayor Kinchin.
Let us pray. Almighty God, by your holy prophet Jeremiah, you taught your ancient people to seek the welfare of the cities in which they lived. You have given to us the Sebastian community and all its resources as our heritage. Bless Sebastian with honesty in the workplace, truth in education, and strength of purpose in concern for others. Keep us free from social strife and to live with honor in daily life. Guide the public servants of Sebastian, that they may do their work in a spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice. Help them use their authority to serve faithfully and to promote our common life. We pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. We pray for the agenda set before them this night. Give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live here as well as those who come here to enjoy the rich and abundant resources of this community. It is in your most blessed name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kitchen.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember Iovino.
Here.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any agenda modifications this evening, Council? All right, hearing none, that'll lead us to item 6. Proclamations, awards, and brief announcements. This evening, we're going to have a presentation by Beth Mitchell from Sebastian's Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Mitchell, would you come forward, please? Just kidding.
Ooh.
Good evening, Beth.
Good evening, Mayor.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Now, can you hear me through this? That's why we have tech people. That's so much better. Beth, how are you this evening?
Terrific.
Last city council member as the CEO of the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce.
That's true.
Right, how's that feel?
Feels awesome.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beth came here, 19 years ago as the director of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's an interesting story. The person who asked Beth to become the director of the Chamber at that time was a little bit concerned about how they were actually going to pay her. Is that true? And so it took a long time and a lot of hard work, but Beth took the Chamber of Commerce, the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce, from something very small. It was in a smaller building than it is now. It had a heck of a lot less businesses in it, did it not? And through hard work and dedication and commitment, she built that into a chamber that's to be reckoned with. A chamber that does an amazing job of helping our business community. And by helping the business community, you not only help those businesses, you help the city of Sebastian. Now, the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce basically deals with North Indian River County, if I'm not mistaken, and a little bit of Southern Brevard. Right. But let's talk about Sebastian specific and what I believe that you in particular, as the director of the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce, has done for our community. Your involvement in many of the planning things that have gone on in our community, like the charrette process that we had on 512, certainly the CRA planning, dealing with many of our ordinances and going through those things with the city, helping those businesses, which again help the city of Sebastian. A thriving business community is essential to a successful and sustainable community, and you have made that happen. Sebastian's not as beautiful if you're not in it. If you look at the CRA and the beautiful businesses along Indian River Drive, Beth is a great deal to do with those businesses, helping them to survive, succeed, and certainly to enhance this community. 512 is not as nice. Sebastian is not as great a community without Beth Mitchell in it. So we're very proud tonight to honor her and thank her for her service. And Beth, now I have a proclamation for Beth Mitchell Day, which you've got your own day. But let me tell you, you better hurry up. You've only got a few more hours left in it. All right. So it doesn't mean free drinks. Okay, I'm just saying. All right, proclamation for Beth Mitchell Day, December 12, 2018. Whereas Miss Mitchell moved to Indian River County in 1995 to help with erosion control on the Treasure Coast beaches and fell in love with the creative and nourishing atmosphere of the Sebastian area. And whereas shortly thereafter, she became president and chief executive officer of the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce. And whereas under her attentive leadership, she developed relationships, identified trends, and balanced government regulations to help businesses thrive to create a sense of community. Whereas Ms. Mitchell has provided valuable input as a member of the City of Sebastian's Working Waterfront Committee, Community Redevelopment Advisory Committee, and the Charter Review Committee. And whereas additionally, through her event participation and the development of the Pelican Porch Visitor Center, she has truly enhanced the quality of life for Sebastian's residents. Now therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor and on behalf of the Sebastian City Council, do hereby proclaim December 12, 2018 as Beth Mitchell Day in the city of Sebastian and ask all citizens to give their gratitude to Ms. Mitchell and wish her the best as she embarks upon her pursuit of retirement. And now, because of your efforts and because what you have done has made Sebastian such a special place, we have a small token of our appreciation for you. We have something that we give to very, very, very few people in the city of Sebastian, and I think it's been given to maybe 2 or 3 in our history. It's very special to us, so we hope that you feel it's very special as well. And that is a gold pelican.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We hope you wear that with pride.
I absolutely will.
And we thank you very much for everything you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you. My comments will be brief. I am looking forward to retirement, but it is a little bittersweet. There are so many people that have been involved with the successes of the chamber. It's not about just one person. From the chamber's perspective, we've always promoted Sebastian for its natural resources and its recreational opportunities, and I intend to take advantage of all of that. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Madam Vice Mayor, do you have announcements?
We have 2 announcements. The Police Department Family Movie Night is December 14th at 6 p.m. at Riverview Park, and they are showing The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And on December 15th from 10 to 4, the Sebastian River Art Club show will be in Riverview Park.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other announcements from council members? All right, thank you. Item 7, I'm going to recess the council meeting and reconvene as the Community Redevelopment Agency. Item B is the Septic to Sewer Program.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Frazier's here as well, and she's been administering this program. And we think it's a very significant program for the city just because of some of the things you talked about with Ms. Mitchell and revitalizing our waterfront and protecting those waters. And the city has been a great steward of moving this program forward and providing grant funds to remove septic tanks and working with the county to put them on sewer systems. We've used several funding opportunities through city funds, through the Indian River Lagoon Council funds, and various grants to compile dollars. And I think over the last 3 years, we've spent approximately $700,000, and there's a few, I think there's about $90,000 left over, but we've been a great steward, and we want to move this, continue with this, even with the dollars that we have budgeted from the city, and apply for other grants, and we'll be talking about it later this evening, going for appropriations. But once we have all these dollars in place, what makes sense? And what we're asking for is direction from City Council on how you'd like to see this administered so that it's equitable, it's fair, and that we can also make the most use of all the dollars. And there'll be minimal dollars now until we either get appropriations or grants. We don't want to spend it all in one spot, but we want to make sure we can do the most. So with that, I'll let Ms. Frazier take over and also open it up to council for any questions you have regarding your ideas on this process.
All right, great. Thank you. Ms. Frazier?
Well, I'm not sure if I have much more to add. You have the information in front of you regarding the dollars that we've allocated, the dollars that we've spent, what we have remaining. I just want to point out that we have requested a no-cost extension to the Indian River Lagoon Council in order for them to keep those funds still available to us so that we can continue the projects that we've already allocated the dollars, and they're still pending. It will continue to be in the funding for another year. And so that has worked out well. Their RFP has not been announced yet. Regardless of when it comes out, either in the spring or this winter, those dollars will not be available for our use until fall. So I just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of that, and I'm here to answer any questions and discuss it with you.
All right, thank you. Council? Anyone on council have some comments of staff, or we'll go ahead and start? Mr. Dodd.
Okay. Just a couple of questions about the information in the agenda packet. Item number 3 on page 6 of 106, that $274,000 there is not grant money. That's actual money that was set aside to administer a project to kind of do the studies that are required to determine whether we can expand the sewer system into the remainder of the Highlands, correct?
That was money that was set aside specifically citywide, not necessarily in the Highlands, but to look at those areas and if there's a possibility to convert those. Staff and I have discussed that, and we've been looking at areas that it may make sense. Before we spend any actual dollars on engineering, we need to come up with a concept where it may or may not make sense, and with vacuum systems and different types of systems to try to get that done. But rather than just spend money on engineering, we've been discussing it internally. So the funds, but we could, the city could allocate those funds from the citywide to the CRA and use them in that grant fund as well. So those are some of the options we want to reach out to the council tonight. One of the things that came up at the last council meeting, we gave $45,000 to one property. There was 2 properties. Is that the right way to do it? Do we set one of the comments I think the mayor mentioned, do we do it on a percentage base, not to exceed? And I think this is kind of where staff's really looking for the direction. Is it one septic per property or one building, a maximum dollar amount, a percentage of total cost? So if it's $5,000 total cost, does the city pay $5,000, the property owner pays none? Or is it a 50-50 cost share, 60-40 cost share? These are just some ideas because, again, these are going to be limited dollars. We want to make sure that we can get as many systems off septic as we can and not spend all the money on 1 or 2.
Okay, because there's 2 issues that we're grappling with. One is the grant program, which is what you were just mentioning, and the other one is the expansion of septic to sewer conversion program to the entire city, if it's possible to do that. This $247,000 is really aimed towards the second issue. It's not part of any grant program that we might be able to allocate that money towards.
Correct.
Okay.
And if I may elaborate, the county has done an entire study of the county, and they have indicated that the Highlands area ranks very, very high. And we have been reaching out to the county saying, we're here, we want to partner with you, we want to make this happen, we have dollars that are allocated, we're not coming empty-handed, we would like to help you move this forward. It will help with getting grants. We'll partner together. That always looks great for grants. So we have been reaching out. The county has been working on a policy regarding septic to sewer, and so that's kind of where we are in that holding pattern with those dollars.
Looking at their top 30 list, they've got approximately 3,520 house lots in Sebastian on their top 30 list of areas.
That's correct.
That's about $44 million worth of expenditures. That's something that we can't do on our own, but we hopefully can figure out a way to get done some other way, to do that. So, okay. I just wanted to clarify that money was not there for us to deal with in the grant program. We have this $99,000 plus, if I understand it correctly, there's an additional $75,000 in our current cycle budget that we allocated to this program.
That is included in the $99,000.
That's included in the 99?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes,
all
sir.
right.
So the Indian River Lagoon Council $100,000 match has been expended. We have allocated it to either to projects that we've said we will fund, and yet they're still pending. So those dollars are gone. So we have about $100,000 to spend for the rest of this fiscal year. And should we be successful in going after more Indian River Lagoon Council grant dollars, whenever that comes out, those dollars would become available in the fall.
Okay. Now, are there properties in the new gravity system that the county just put in that are not inside the CRA but are inside the city of Sebastian? Because right now it's a CRA grant program. Are
Correct.
there properties in the northern edge of the city that do not fall into CRA? Because the CRA ends.
Correct.
South of some of that property, I think.
And there's only about 50 properties that are eligible within the CRA for the hookup to the gravitational system.
But are there properties outside the CRA
Yes, sir.
in the city that are eligible?
Not in the city.
Not in the city. Okay, that's all not in the city then.
Correct.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, I prefer the sharing program, something like a 75-25, just my input to that. And I also prefer that we have two different grant amounts, one for people who can do a gravity system, which is much less expensive, and one for people who have to do a lift station connection, which is much more expensive. I don't know, maybe something like a $7,500 cap on a gravity system and the current $15,000 cap with cost sharing, $10,000 from the city and money from additional grants that we might get for people who have to do a lift station. Because it is more expensive, and there's no sense in paying greater amounts on the gravity system than on the lift station system. And as far as property is concerned, it seems like that we have to either go back to active operational septic systems on a piece of property that has multi-buildings on it or multi-tenants, or we have to go to the ERU, the unit designation that the county uses, and basically say that number of grants available or that would have to be directed by something like one of those two. I don't know if it's fair to say we would do one grant per piece of property, especially if they have 3 septic tanks or 4 septic tanks active.
Right.
Because we do have several properties in the city that have multiple buildings on them, and each one may have a septic tank system because of the time frame they were built under or so forth. So I don't know whether we can do something like that, but my preference is that we have something very specific that spells out the number of eligible grant awards that can be done on a physical piece of property.
Would you still want to max the dollars amount per property?
Well, no, per award. I think we have to max the dollars per award. If we award, if a piece of property such as the Halo we listened to the other day, they have 3 active septic tank systems, and we gave them 3 awards. And we maxed each of those awards out at $15,000. And I think if that's the approach that we want to take, active septic systems, then that was a valid thing. If we want to change that approach, then that might have changed the decision on that process as we did that. So.
Yeah, I honestly think in that we should look at the ERUs. And so you can have 3 active systems on a property that has very little use, just because it has multiple buildings on it. And so if a hotel, for instance, or a gas station or a restaurant are going to have substantially more ERUs than say, a facility like Halo or something like that.
Right.
So if you base it on the ERUs, then what you're really doing is you're basing it on the amount of actual waste that property will be creating, and so you're basing the amount that we're willing to give on that exact number. So if they're going to be creating a lot more waste, then we're willing to eliminate more waste with the dollars. And I think that is sort of the whole reason we do what we do up here. So I think the ERUs, basing the award on ERUs is probably the best way to go. Now, that may get things tricky with staff.
That's going to be difficult because you also have to look at ability to pay. So a hotel that's versus Halos, their ability to fund capital improvements are much different from like a Best Western. I'm not saying they're one, but something like Best Western that has a profitable stream versus a non-profitable stream. You know, how would you look at that?
Well, the goal of the grant is to eliminate septic tanks. So not looking at the ability to pay, we're looking at the ability to get septic tanks out of the CRA. And so I think that wouldn't matter to me when I'm looking at these grants as to whether or not they make more money than the other. That would matter not. What I think that the taxpayer dollars should go toward is eliminating septic tanks. And so by eliminating septic tanks, we're trying to eliminate the amount of waste that's going into the ground. And the ERUs are indicative of the amount of waste that each property will create. So it seems to me like if we could figure out a formula, some sort of an algorithm to just plug numbers into, it should be able to give us your maximum on this one. Obviously, our max is going to be whatever. I mean, so the ERUs could dictate what the maximum amount we would give on a property.
Well, if I may, because I have the list provided to me from Indian River County, and ERUs are a little tricky because they're rating how much water usage, and that's not always equitable to your waste stream.
But just I want you to clarify if I'm incorrect in this. The county uses that to determine don't they use the ERUs to determine the cost for connection?
That is correct.
Okay, so.
You are correct in that manner. So if you're stating, though, that someone who has 4 ERUs is going to get 4 times the amount of a match or whatever, you know, the money than somebody with 1 ERU, is that what we're kind of getting to?
Or the maximum allocated, okay, for instance, the issue with Halo, if we dealt with Halo on an ERU basis,
correct,
rather than the amount of septic tanks they actually had in the ground,
correct,
then we would have just had the number of ERUs that the county had anticipated Halo.
And this is where it falls apart. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but in the list from the county, they have Halo as only 1 ERU, which shocked me, because then when the engineer came back, he said, no, it's really 4 ERUs. And so we, of course, would have to go with what's real and not necessarily this. However, if you're looking at the car wash, they definitely have a heck of a lot of ERUs allocated towards car wash because they use a great deal of water. But they may only have 1 tank. That I don't know, but I'm assuming they only have 1 tank. So then it kind of falls apart, if you understand what I'm saying, that kind of scenario. You can look at even open storage units, and I'm sorry if I'm pulling out certain individuals, but you know, the county's saying it has 4 ERUs. I would only assume they have 1 or 2 tanks. So again, I'm not sure if we're looking at apples and apples, and if using ERUs would be the equitable standard to go by. I understand the council's intent to every septic system. Let's remove the septic systems and let's find an equitable manner there. If I may suggest, right at this time, I underlined it so that I could remember for you all too, is that the grants fund not only the closure of a septic system, which can run between $1,000 to $1,500 each septic system. That's permitting and just closing it down, collapsing it, filling it with concrete, whatever method is the most equitable. We also pay for the connection fees, which are your ERUs, correct? permitting costs, which is typically negligible, and then design and construction costs. If we want to maybe back off on all of those costs and just try to concentrate on what is it we're trying to accomplish, and that's closing the tank and maybe the construction cost and maybe a percentage of the connection fee. I'm just trying to give you there's 4 costs that we're looking at.
So I think that, and obviously there's only been 2 of us that have spoken on this, but if it is decided that we want to get away from the amount of septic tanks and something more equitable, then I suppose that's going to be upon staff to figure out something to bring back to the council or to this agency so that we can take a look at whatever it is you come up with that seems to be something reasonable and fair. But also, something that will take a property that just because they have additionals doesn't necessarily allow them more. So I would be comfortable with staff coming back to us with what you think is going to be the most equitable. I'm not saying ERUs are the best idea. What I'm saying is I don't think that using the formula of per tank is necessarily the best way to go. So that's only me though. So
no, I kind of disagree. I think per tank is the way to go, because that's what we're trying to do, is eliminate each septic tank that's being used out there in the CRA district. And I know for a fact, having worked for the city, that we have been charged with additional ERUs on locations that we've had to argue with the county about because we nowhere needed that many ERUs on a particular piece of property when we were hooking up. And so we would get back the credits for some of those ERUs. So I think per septic tank is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, after listening to the conversation, I can understand the issues with the ERUs, and I kind of agree with Linda. I think that our objective, what we need to state to the staff is our objective is to get rid of the septic tanks. That's what we're after. And some equitable cost-sharing method by which we can do that with the property owners.
I don't have a problem with that. We can pick a number.
Yeah, and I do think that we should possibly have a different award ceiling between gravity system connections and connections that require a lift station because of the difference in cost in that. And that will help, especially the businesses in the older part of the CRA who don't have access to gravity systems. It'll help them a little bit better too.
Yeah, and I mean, the part of the concern we have here also is that we're running out of money. I mean, that's where the big concern is. So just trying to figure out how to best spend that money to get those septic tanks out of the ground. So, yeah. So I think we all kind of agree. And if it is per tank, then I will support that. If it's per whatever, then whatever we need to do. Just it's good that we're looking at this and workshopping it and talking about it.
Because our next big problem is the $1,420,000 we need to do away with the 150 septic tanks that are currently eligible for removal in the CRA.
Right, and one of the things I want to clarify, you had made a statement on item 3 of page 6. Now that money is allocated to citywide septic to sewer, but that does not mean that under the discretion of this CRA that we couldn't use that for grant funding.
Well, I don't know what budget item that comes out of, whether it's out of the CRA or whether it's out of the city
it's
budget.
Out of general fund, so you'd have to, as city council, you could allocate it citywide, including CRA, to spend those dollars.
Right. So, but I get what you're saying. So we would probably want to.
I mean, I would love to see us hire somebody use that money to temporarily bring in some grant people and try to see if we can independently or in unison with the county. There's got to be federal and state grant money flowing all over the place. This was the big topic during the midterm elections. Big topic.
But I want to emphasize that for the citywide portion, we really need to work with the county, partner with them.
Yes. Oh, I agree with that. Vincent Burke needs to be involved in it.
And partnering with their dollars and making this happen. And the study's out there. I mean, the county has done the study and they've ranked us very high. So, and I met with the DEP last year up in Tallahassee, and they were very, very interested in helping Sebastian. So we just need to figure out what it is we want to do. And that is why I brought up the $319. And I was successful in my last position of getting $400,000 from 319. What the 319 allows you to do, and that's the Clean Water Act, and it's Section 319 sub H. That's why they call it the 319. It's administered by DEP, but it's the EPA dollars. So it is a long process. We can apply in the spring. Those dollars would not become available to us until fall of 20. They would be looking for a project area, and those dollars can be used for individual private properties to collapse their tank to do the construction connection. It won't pay for connection fees, but it would do the construction portion on private property. So it's a nice grant for us to go after. I just want you to know the parameters. It would not be available. And for us to say all of CRA, that may be difficult for them to grasp, but we could possibly say all of the people on the gravity sewer, the 50. It's a thought. It's a thought. And then, you know, I've gone for those grants before, so I just want you to know the parameters for that.
Go after as much grant money as possible.
Certainly.
I think we also should keep in mind that we should have a good opportunity based on the money that the city has already allocated. Right. If we go to Tallahassee and we talk about it, our legislative priorities, to get money for septic to sewer conversion, one of the things they look for is how much skin does the city or the county or whoever have in the game, and we have significant dollars in there. We have a record of success. And when you talk to legislators, they want to see action and return on their investment, that you're actually doing something. We have a message that we can tell that makes sense. So I think we could do very well in Tallahassee if we make that one of our priorities as part of this program.
Mr. Uvino?
I have a quick question. I'm a little bit behind on this, obviously, because I've only been here since about a year in November. Right now, this is just the conversion is just it's not mandatory, right? Like if I'm a homeowner and I have a septic system in my home and I live in the CRA and I don't want to convert this to sewer, I don't have to do that, correct?
Well, there's a statute that says if sewer is available, you're supposed to hook up in 2 years, and then you can get another extension, usually out to about 5 years.
And I'm talking more along the lines of I'm a homeowner, I don't have the money in order to connect.
Correct. So the statute states you need to connect if it becomes available to you. But of course, they don't really enforce it because they recognize people's financial hardships. However, should your septic system fail,
then you have to.
Then you would have to, yes. And so that's why we'd like to get out in front and help these individuals.
And as we move forward with this, I would imagine that from year to year, it actually gets more costly to do so. And I'm just going back to like my own home when the county went from, you could go from well water to actual county water. Initially, when they first came out with that, you had it was offered at a lower price. The county was kicking actually in some of the money to do that. I think it was like an assessment fee on the home was like around $1,500. And me personally, I took advantage of that because I figured, well, the longer that we wait, the more expensive it's going to be in the long run. So we, as Bob was saying, can we will we be able to maybe cap per septic system as well? Like when if we have a home that has one septic system in it, we cap the amount of money that we're actually spending per system versus the way that we're doing it now?
Yes, and the way we're doing it now is offering up to $15,000. The unfortunate reality is that along the riverfront area, which is what we really are concentrating on, there's only a force main. And so in order to connect to a force main, you need a lift station, and lift stations are much more expensive than a gravity system. So in comparison, a gravity system, you can connect and collapse your tank for about $5,000. And that was witnessed last meeting where the individual homeowner asked for $7,800 because that's all it costs them, you know, with their connection fee. So if we capped the gravity at $5,000, let's say, that would work for a lot of people. There would be a lot less out of their pocket that they'd have to come up with. But for people that have to put in a lift station, which is the median cost of that is about $15,000.
And it wouldn't work for them.
Then we'd have to,
And that's why you were saying maybe try to do all of them on a gravity where we could get more bang for the buck, but still we're sharing some of the costs with the homeowners or residents in the CRA versus not. I got you.
Correct.
Okay.
and with this program, I want everyone to know that even though they may come in and say, oh, it's going to cost you, well, for like Halo, it was $66,000 plus, they have to prove to us that they actually spent those dollars. I mean, they have to give us the receipts. It's a reimbursable grant. So that is why we have these dollars that are pending expenditure until, the individuals, they have 1 year to get it done, and some of them are running out of time.
Yeah, and just for clarification, there's also, the county generally will give assessments in the form of low-interest loans that will go on their tax or on their bills, so they can pay them through their bills. They don't necessarily have to come up with the $10,000 or $15,000 immediately. That can go onto their utility bills as payments of that. So,
and I was just thinking in the context. I mean, how many properties have we had that had a Halo situation? Again,
We're running into more and more.
more than what we thought.
More than what we thought, yes,
we never
sir.
thought. I mean, I'm sure they didn't think so either, that they were going to have more than 1 or 2 septic systems on the property, and they wound up having really 3 units, but 4, right?
Right, 4.
Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking to make it fair on our end, because obviously we want to stretch the dollars as much as we can to help everybody. But if we're spending all of it at one shot, then we'd have nothing left to help the rest of the people in the CRA. So.
Exactly.
And that's why I gave you that scenario that, over a 2-year period, that this particular grant was available. We had about $330,000, and over that 2-year period, we removed 21 septic tanks. So the average cost is a little over $15,000 each. And so if we want to keep with those numbers, staff certainly can then come back to the council with an amount that maybe we want to go to Indian River Lagoon Council and ask for a match.
Yeah, because prior to, in the last 2 years, they've all been lift station transitions. We haven't had the gravity system available until now. So there's going to be a shift in some of those averages once the people who have availability for the gravity system start to connect. And it may well be, I like the concept of trying to use a $400,000 grant. If we can concentrate on the gravity system area, we might almost be able to pay for what we would do in grants to those property owners and knock out that piece of the pie quickly.
And we could ask for all of the CRA and then see what they say.
Yeah, of course.
They can always say no.
All right, great. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Damian Gilliams, 1623 US Highway 1, Sebastian, business owner in the CRA. I want to make 4 quick points. I want to talk about revenue, and I want to talk about equitable distribution. The CRA district is where most of our commercial businesses are. I'm sure you will agree, in percentage-wise. So a lot of those businesses pay into the occupational license fund. And over the years, the occupational license fund has been directed to the building department until just recently when I brought it to your attention that was not fair and equitable, that those funds were being subsidized to help the builders.
Sir?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we stay on track.
We're on track.
Because we're speaking specifically about the CRA and the
That's
septic.
correct.
And the septic.
I'm showing you where the revenue went and how you can get revenue for your septic systems.
Okay, so what we're speaking about is specifically in the CRA, the septic to sewer program. You may proceed.
So you need funds. You're lacking funds. You're trying to figure out where to get the funds. Well, I watch you guys over the years lend your enterprise accounts money to one account to the other and you pay it back. Why don't you pay the $500 to almost $1 million in occupational license fees that you lent the building department and put it back over towards the businesses of the community? Then we wouldn't have to be hashing out how we're going to figure out how we're going to get all these septic tanks paid up. What you did was you took money from the businesses of our community that we were paying into, and you subsidized another form of business in the community that you should never have done to begin with. So that's a revenue source. That's a revenue stream that if you transfer those funds back, then, and put that in the CRA where your businesses are, sir, you wouldn't have these issues. We could have plenty of funds to accommodate all the septic systems. That's number one. Number two, the county has an escrow fund of millions and millions of dollars that they collect on base fees on the utilities of our city that we gave up from general development. There's a lot of money there, and we're subsidizing their escrow account, and we need to be able to put in for grants and money out of that escrow account. We need to talk to our county commissioners, Mrs. Adams and Mr. Fletcher, and we need to put in a request to get additional funds from that escrow. And I'm talking $20 to $40 million. That's number two. You know, you talk about how is it equitable to allocate funds for septic systems. Well, there's a lot of variables. Some have bigger tanks, some have smaller tanks, some has more tanks, but everybody has a tax ID number. And everybody should be looked at as a tax ID number, and you should be allocating funds to a tax ID number, because they all pay taxes. Now, the other way that you can look at it is, you have the force main, and you have the gravity. And obviously, each one of those systems take different types of funds. So that's another way to break that up and look at it from a different perspective. So, in closings, Mr. Mayor, your staff, I'm sure, will direct you. They will do the calculations with the ERUs, and they will come back to you. I just wanted to show you that there are funds out there that we in the CRA district and the businesses of this community, we should not have to be fighting over how we're going to get septic systems onto the county utilities department. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none. But the good news is that we're up here doing our best to help the business community in the CRA get on the septic, or get on the sewer system and off the septic. So, anything else, council? Staff, I believe you have plenty of direction.
Thank you. We'll brainstorm together and come up with some ideas, and we'll bring that back to you. When we get ready to reinstate the program, we'll bring it back to you for final adoption and comment.
Excellent. And then, of course, if any council member has any issues that they want to speak with you specifically about, they can just contact you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll now adjourn the CRA and reconvene as the city council meeting. Leads us to item 9, consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We have no committee reports, or I shall ask council, do you have any committee reports this evening? All right, seeing none. No public hearings, no unfinished business. That now leads us to item 13, public input. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on any item not currently on the agenda this evening? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Bob Stephen. I live at 150 Concha Drive. That's on the Elkham Waterway. I'm here tonight before you again to remind everyone that the city of Sebastian is still spraying huge quantities of toxic herbicides along our waterways.
Sir?
My concern,
Sir?
Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
I have a concern, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I understand you have a concern, and I have the same concerns that you have, except we have a different opinion on whether or not the city is spraying toxic herbicides on our waterways. So we want to be careful of the language that we're putting out over the television or over the air, because there are different opinions and rulings on what we're doing and what we're spraying, and the city is very clear and careful to make sure that we are following all rules and regulations relative to the Environmental Protection Agency and the laws that we have to abide to. So I just ask that you please and kindly, and we do want to hear what you have to say, but please sort of tame the language on the toxins and poisons and those things, because we want to make sure that the public is aware that we're not putting poisons out per the Environmental Protection Agency. So you can proceed, and I'll give you the remainder of your time that I took. Go ahead.
We do have the MSDS sheets on this, Mr. Mayor, and we'd be glad to share them with you. We'd love to put a roundtable together and discuss this.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so my concern is that we have alternatives to this that we are not even considering. I think the council should now consider an alternative to this. The question here is, why aren't we? I'm going to leave you with one note here. A recent quote from Erin Brockovich: "We're spraying ourselves to death."
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on any items not currently on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Damian Gilliams, 1623 US 1. Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, this is a free country. This is America. Your agenda invites the public to speak on the public input. We're entitled to speak for 5 minutes without interruption. You do not have the right to audit and decide what we can say and what we can't say. This is America, sir. You may not like what we have to say, but we have a right to say it. Let the public and let everybody in the community decide what's correct and what's not correct. By you cutting into our time and deciding what's good and what's not good is not fair. It's not fair in America, and you should stop it. And the council should be going with a point of order when he does that. And I'm sorry to see, Mr. Mayor, I'm speaking power to truth and truth to power.
Don't point your finger.
They're wrong. I can point up, I can point down. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not being disruptive. This is my opinion. With all due respect, congratulations on your win, Mr. Mayor. But remember, there are other people in this community, not just you. There's 23% that we care about that have a voice. Number two, please stop denying our First Amendment right to speak at public hearings that you invite us to under your public input. Stop it. Number three, Easy Street, the parking down there at the park. You put that park in, you put the parking in there on Easy Street, and you did not notice the people that live in that community about the parking that you put there. Your parking is now failing. Please, have your engineers review it. Pine Street is a better alternative. Number four, the Chamber of Commerce, congratulations, Mrs. Beth, but you failed us. I have a right to speak my opinion.
You don't, sir?
Mr. Mayor?
No, sir, I will speak now.
I have a right to speak.
Sir, you have a right to speak, but you do not have a right to attack anyone.
I'm not attacking anybody. I'm speaking truth to power. The lease down there is $1 a month.
Sir.
That is not attacking.
When you specify a person and say they failed,
Okay.
you're attacking.
Chamber of Commerce, I'm not going to identify anybody. He pays $1 a month. I want to thank Mr. Bob McPartland and Mr. Dodd, and I called Linda and told him about the parking problem. I want to thank the city manager for changing the sign down there. You took candy cane parking, you allocated it to the chamber. That was an illegal use of taking a property without proper disposition to this community and proper notice. Don't be misled. That's not chamber parking. That's community parking next to the chamber. I'm not happy about it. And there's a lot of people that complain to me, and they're afraid to speak power to truth. That's what I'm here to speak, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the city manager for now finally getting with the state legislators and our delegation and start applying for money that we've been requesting time and time over. I made a mistake, Mr. City Manager. I did not vote for you when you were hired. I regret that. You're doing a damn good job. God bless you. Maybe this city will move forward with the additional funding that we need and get our fair share of state grants and equity. I want to thank the city attorney for looking into a problem. My family has put CDs in your bank account, and we're still waiting to get interest on that money that you illegally took. And he's now looking into it. And I want to thank the city attorney for taking the time and the effort to find that interest. That CD was not in the city's name. It was in the person who put the CD in. And I want to bring it to the public's input because this is our only way of speaking power to truth as to what's going on at our city council meetings. And we're closing, Mr. Mayor. We're not going away. We want full transparency. We want everything out in the sunshine. And we will hold you accountable and your council members accountable. And when you sit there and you don't call your mayor and check him and call a point of order, all of you are just as bad. Thank you. Let's have a nice Merry Christmas. God bless this community, and thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to be clear to everyone that we welcome input, and we welcome everyone's input. We don't want anyone to be intimidated when they come up. It's important for us to get public input, but what I have to do is make sure we maintain an orderly meeting. So if people step out of bounds or make statements that could be considered salacious, then I have to do my job and just to make sure that we keep everything in bounds. So please feel free to come forward and speak if you have anything to bring this evening. All right, thank you very much. Item 14A, new business, discuss the legislative priorities for submission. Mr. Carlisle.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's important, and I know we have done it in the past, that Senator Mayfield in January is going to be holding her legislative delegation in the county, and it provides the city an opportunity to go before the senator and explain what our needs and wants and what we expect to receive from the legislature and the protections that we want, not only funding but also items such as home rule and things that we've all fought for, and those are things that we'll need to continue to keep a vigilance on, because it seems every year the attack goes stronger to take away our home rule. I put a few items on here for you to consider. It's obviously your legislative priorities that you want to see expressed to her and expressed to the legislators, our representatives, and also those in Tallahassee from our surrounding districts. But I think we need to compile your priorities and get those to them, and then follow it up in Tallahassee with meeting with them face-to-face at the Capitol and making sure that they know that we're serious about what we're doing here and that we're good stewards of our environment and of our city. So with that, I can go over these few that I have, or Mayor, you all can open it up to your own suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the list. Everything on the list looks pretty much like the items that we've been discussing, if not for years, then certainly for months. I don't have any additional that I would want to put on there. I do think that they all are appropriate and should be on there. I think that we should potentially place at the top of the list the septic to sewer and the water quality issues. Not that we're going to be listing them in order of importance, but while presenting these, it'd be nice for them. Sometimes they don't necessarily get to the bottom of the page. So we want to make sure that they at least get to the start. So.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, so the septic to sewer, I'll actually write up a project worksheet on that one, because we have actual dollars that we have spent. We have an actual project that we can spend it on, and we can talk to other senators that I've spoken to in the past about septic to sewer, and Senator Mayfield being one. And so then it becomes a project worksheet, and then you'll have to go to Tallahassee and make a presentation, but at least it becomes a project with some, not just a conversation, it's an actual fundable water project. And so we'll be able to submit that. That'll be a little bit distinctly different from all the others, but this is an actual project that we can submit to them, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to see the school resource officers moved up a little bit further on the list too. I think it's not just a problem for Sebastian. We were somewhat lucky from a budget perspective because we've been doing part of this all along, but there's a lot of areas in Florida that the municipalities just got hit with big-time dollars to provide those resource officers when they weren't doing it at all. And it's something that I think I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt coming from at the state level, where there's people questioning whether the state shouldn't, the fact that they didn't properly fund that. So it might be something that we can have some opportunity to try to impact and help our budget process next year in providing those resource officers.
Right, clearly.
And also on the sewer to septic, you've got a number in here that says the critical, designated critical by the county will cost approximately $800,000 to convert septic to sewer.
That's only in the CRA.
Okay. Well, that's because it's $44 million if you do the whole thing. So
that's only those few homes in the CRA that we were looking at when I did this, and that number is actually really 1.5 million after this was compiled and put together, and then I got additional figures. So it's really closer to 1.5 million in the CRA.
All right, because it doesn't actually reference CRA in here, but when you do your project breakup on that, you'll tie that specifically back to that part of the city. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because the state's going to have to be a major source of revenue as we try to expand this to the rest of the city. And we haven't really solved our problem, because there isn't a septic tank in Sebastian that doesn't impact the quality of that river. I mean, where we're located, there isn't a single septic tank in Sebastian. Doesn't ultimately impact the quality of that river. We have to be west of 95, and then it impacts quality of some other stream. So, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments from council, questions?
I also think that the list looks pretty good. I agree with Mr. Dodd about moving the school resource officer one up, because again, that's a hot button item right now. Years later, it turns into one of those unfunded mandates that we have to go with, and especially with the governor's executive order, I know they got to do a lot of re-looking at that whole thing, because they created a lot of holes in that bill, and I think school resource officer is something, you know, the state should look at funding and not just dropping it on us.
I have no changes or additions.
Yes, sir.
I would just agree with what they said about the school resource. I think there was a lot of promise and a lot of monies that were initially put out when that whole thing happened, and we're seeing like a percentage of the money than actually what was promised initially.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on item 14A? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Williams, 1623 US 1. Again, I want to commend the city manager for bringing this to your attention. The delegation, the finding of additional funds is very important to this community. And our canals, as you know, you taxed us, you doubled our stormwater fee, and we need help. You did half the highlands, but the other highlands, where all those canal walls and work that has not been performed yet. We're waiting to see your feasibility study. We're waiting to see your master plan. But that's where the state of Florida can assist through St. John's Water Management by getting additional grant money. And if we have to hire a lobbyist to speak for us on our behalf up in Tallahassee, and it's going to be a $15 to $20 million project, Mr. Mayor, so be it. Because if we're going to get a return on our investment, hire the lobbyist. Let's get some representation. I'm sure our city manager knows how to retain a good lobbyist so we can get those funding. Their properties are depreciating. They're going down in value if you live on a canal. It's bad enough somebody came up earlier and said you're spraying poisons in our canals. That's not been proven. I'm sure it's an allegation. But you know what? We need to look into it. We have the railroad, Virgin trains. We have the safety crossings, maintenance, additional funding. As you all know, I'm sure the community is aware that the county has now set aside another $1 million to try to straighten that out. We need to talk with our county commissioners and our delegation to see how we're going to defer those expenses and the safety of this community. We have X amount of crossings that need to be addressed, and that needs to be put on the agenda. And thank you for bringing up the septic to sewer system, because obviously we need those additional funds, and that's the best way to get it, through the St. John's and DEP. The other thing is the solar project that never got started in this community. Third world countries have solar on top of their streetlights. Why are we paying FP&L hundreds of thousands of dollars every year when that money can be recycled back into this community and we can put out streetlights that have solar lamps on top? We need to be in the renewable energy business. We need to think green. We've got toxic algae blooms. We have red tide in our community. These are things that we need help with. C-54 canal comes out of Fellsmere. You got 20 to 30,000 acres of agriculture. You think they're fertilizing with love? We have problems here. We need to get with our neighbors and call them out on it. There are a lot of fishermen in this community that are not happy. And it's going into the Sebastian River, and it goes right into the Indian River Lagoon. It needs to be addressed. You are our leaders. We're hoping that the city manager will address these issues. The school resource officer, obviously, we don't want to ever have to deal with that. God forbid you get that call and something happens to your child, because we did not have security at our schools, our churches. We need to be proactive. Cannot put our guard down. It's a crazy society out there. We must be on our guard, and we need to get additional funding from the state legislature. They're raking in the money with the taxes. Their money, their budget is 18 to 20, $80 billion is the state budget.
20 seconds, man.
The Florida Department of Transportation, US 1, all that stuff is feeding into the lagoon. You guys all know about it. It needs to stop. We need a community center. We need to start talking. Thank God we got a new city manager. He's going to show us new leadership. I hope that you guys give him the tools and the things that he needs to get the job done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none. So council, we're pretty happy with everything that's on there. I guess we'll discuss who's going to go ahead and go down there. I will be available, if it's appropriate, to go down and speak before the delegation that day. All right, thank you very much. Item B, site plan, design, and location for Sebastian Municipal Airport. Approve the site plan for pickleball. Oh, this is what you guys are all here for, pickleball. All right. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as you know, we've been fast-tracking this project, and you all in September had approved for one of our consulting engineers to start the design and the site plan for this pickleball court. If you could remember, just to get a little history, we were going to build 4 back here behind City Hall. Well, this new project, with the funding we have, some of it will be phased in, but we plan on building 8 pickleball courts, a restroom, and parking, and a pavilion within that. And then as the next funding cycle comes, hopefully we'll get lighting in. And we're looking to start construction, hopefully the first quarter of 2019 with these courts. And in conjunction with that, we have about a 4-month lead time on the restroom. So we need to get this site plan for you all to approve this conceptual site plan so that we can then bring the next item to you. If you don't approve this, then the next item we'll ask you not to take action on. But I think this is a good plan. This is out by the airport. It's where the old maintenance building used to be. There's water, sewer there. There's electric. Everything's there to make this happen at a considerably less cost than what was the courts out in behind Friendship Park. And I think it makes for a better use by the golf course, the restaurant. And so we'd ask City Council to consider this conceptual site plan.
All right, thank you very much. Council, what's your pleasure on item 14B?
I move approval.
Second.
All right, and we're going to have discussion on this item real quick. I'm glad to see that we're going to move forward with this project, that we're going to get the construction underway at the first quarter of 2019, hopefully, right? With the restroom to be coming in a few months thereafter. That's what we're doing tonight, right?
That's correct.
All right, anything else from council members? It sounds like we're pretty positive on this issue here. All right, folks, so it sounds to us, this isn't passed, but I'm going to take input from the public on this, but it seems pretty positive that we're going to be building some pickleball courts out there starting early next year. So anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am.
I am new to your community, and one of the reasons I bought here is because it's a beautiful place, and I was assured that there were pickleball courts to play on. So it's been a little frustrating trying to find places to play. Is there any way at all that we could have 2 dedicated courts at Schumann just so that we could play? We go on Mondays, there's 1 court available. Tuesdays, 1 court available. And there's a number of us here tonight, and it's just, we really need to find some, place to play until the facility gets built. Appreciate your thinking on that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this? Yes, ma'am. You didn't do that playing pickleball, did you? Because I was going to start playing, and
Good evening. My name is Mary Colosino, 315 Yearling Trail in Sebastian. I am the president of Pickleball University in Vero. 3 years ago, we went from 60 to now, I can tell you, at 520 members in that span of time. I am thrilled you are seriously looking at this, and I cannot encourage you to continue moving forward. We are at full capacity, And our members, we have some that live here, we have some that live as far as Melbourne that come in. They would love to participate in that. And just for a heads up, I had already mentioned this before, that I would be more than willing to put on any type of tournaments. I have one going right now in Vero where I bring in 600 people from outside the state, so that would bring income to here. And just to piggyback off of the lady in front of me, we were interested. Our organization would provide funding for the conversion of the courts. We are very sensitive about that, though, because we know that the tennis players really utilize it, especially on Fridays. So we're very cognizant about that. But if this is something that the council would be interested in, our organization would be more than happy to pay for the conversion of 2 courts. So that's
Great, thank you.
I wanted you to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? Yes, sir. You are.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Thomas Quimby, and I live at 202 Briarcliff Circle in Sebastian. Been here 3 years. And I can tell you that my life changed. I thought I was coming to Sebastian to surf, fish, ride my mountain bike, and retire. And I was lucky enough, I'd played pickleball a few times up north, to go to Schumann. And the group that was there was inviting, welcoming. Where else can you find a sport, literally, that you can play a 10-year-old and an 80-year-old can be on the same court and have fun together. So it's changed my life. But since then, I've become an instructor. I work for Mary and a lot of these people here at Pickleball U. In my travels in the last year, I've seen communities, though, put in pickleball courts without really talking to people that really understand how big it should be, the spacing. There's a court that I actually teach on Cape Cod that the back fence is about 5 feet from the back line. And so the first time I played, I smashed right into it, just backed right into it. It was too close. So I went back to look at the specs, and it was a minimum recommendation that the contractor used. So I'm hoping that you'll have some opportunity for some of us that do know quite a bit about pickleball to just offer some insight before the final plan is made on exactly what you're building. So that's my only suggestion, is that I hope we'd have an opportunity to share with you a little bit of what your options are. But I'm very happy. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none. Any more discussion from council?
I would support what that gentleman just said. I mean, if they're going to be on there playing it and he's an instructor and they know what they need, maybe let them have some input as far as...
Well, here, what we're doing right now is we're approving this site plan. And so that's going to get the ball rolling on this thing getting constructed. So, Mr. Carlisle, are you comfortable that this thing's going to be...
We're using all the standards, Schulke's,
right.
He designed all the courts back there, and
right.
the pickleball people were all involved in that.
Right.
We've just taken those designs and moved it out here.
So we've had years of input from the fine pickleballers in our community, and we're very, very happy to see this thing going up there. We love to have tournaments up there. We have a great restaurant out at the golf course, which has a nice proximity to where these pickleball courts are going to be. You'll have beautiful views of the skydivers coming down. So we're very comfortable that this is going to be great for you all. Any more discussion, council? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that is that. The pickleball courts will be built. All right, thank you. Item C, approved purchase of the restroom. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the previous item, Mr. Mayor, we have a significant lead time on this modular restroom. It is the same company that built the modular restroom for the splash pad. We've had great success with that. This company is on the national bid list, so we can piggyback that bid. And in order to complete this project and have a restroom there when it opens, we'll need to start formalizing the order of this, and we'd ask you to approve the purchase of the 2-stall restroom out at the now pickleball courts at the airport.
All right, great. Council, what's your pleasure on item C?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion from council?
Yeah, if you now have approval and you order it relatively quickly, it could be here early in the second quarter, right?
It's 4 months. It's about 4 months.
So if you actually start construction sometime, maybe let's say in March, by the time you get through the process, the restroom's going to show up. So we're not going to have much of a construction delay based on it then?
We should not. And this is contingent upon getting all the permits and everything to start March, April. So that's kind of our timeline.
Yeah.
Optimistic, and as long as we don't have any delays and reevaluations and that, we should be able to get this moving forward.
I mean, because the one thing about this issue is it's been going on since about 2014 or something like that, and I'm very happy. I think you and I both said to somebody at one of our meetings not long ago, we will play pickleball in 2019, right? So.
Well, I've only been here since May, so I can't take credit for all of the delays from the past, but I'll take credit for the progress moving forward, and my staff as well.
All right, thank you.
All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on the purchase of the restroom or the pickleball courts? All right, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So now you'll have pickleball courts and a place to, 14D, approved work authorization number 5 with infrastructure consulting and engineering. Mr. Carlisle.
Mr. Mayor, this is the design engineering firm that we're currently using out at the airport, and we received the monies for Hangar D, and we want to let them start with the infrastructure and the design of all the infrastructure for this building, utilizing those grant funds. So when the next round of funds comes available, we'll be able to start construction. I will tell you that we have had a lot of, and I say a lot, a tremendous amount of interest in space out at the airport. And I can't thank Scott and his staff enough for what they've done to make that airport a success. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Baker if you have any specific questions regarding this item.
Scott?
Thank you. Met with the consulting engineer this afternoon, and we're both very excited about putting this concept together, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the airport, and we'd like to move forward with it.
All right, great. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, move approval of item 14D.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. I would say very, very proud, and I would agree that the work that you guys are doing out at the airport is spectacular. It's beautiful out there, and these types of things with the construction of the hangars, the 3 that we've already constructed have proven to be greatly successful, and I know that this one will be successful as well. I like the fact that you're plugging in additional office space to help us actually have more leasable value in the property, and nothing but great jobs go from me to you on this.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Seeing none. Anything from council? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 14E, approved bid waiver and piggyback Collier County contract. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is a project that's been ongoing in the city. And again, some of these pipelines, they're corrugated metal, they're over 50 years old. This is a piggyback contract with a competitively big contract out of Collier County. And we would ask that you would approve this agenda item for the slip lining of those pipes, $103,290.
All right. Council, what's your pleasure on item E?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? $103,000 to slip line, boy. Any further discussion?
Mr. Carlisle, do you have any plans to mow back some of this shrubbery around these pipes?
They're part of the maintenance program, that they get mowed like 4 times a year. And I don't know when that schedule of that last time that was mowed. But I think those are all part of those ditches that our contract does like 4 times a year. So I don't know when, I don't have the schedule for when that was last mowed.
Seems fairly high around the openings of the pipes, and I'm just thinking if we're going to pay $103,000 to slip line the pipes, we should be able to get the water around the bushes.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item F, Mr. Carlisle.
This is, I believe, the one you were just showing a picture of.
I'm sorry?
I believe this is the one that you were just showing a picture of. There's 16,300.
No, the one I just showed you was Schuman.
Okay.
Schuman and Kildare.
And again, this is the one that's a significantly deep structure, so we would ask to, and again, this is a piggyback off Collier County's contract. We would ask you to approve this agenda item, $16,325.
All right, thank you, Council. What's your pleasure?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Anyone from the public wish to discuss this item? Any further discussion from council? Roll call, please.
Wait.
Yes, ma'am.
I purposely got these pictures so I can
Okay,
speak.
let us see.
That's what you get for working 30 years in the drainage department. This is the one that you're now talking about. Okay, it kind of looks like we need to maybe work with that bottom of that ditch.
I have to look at it.
It's not it's not deep at all. I'll give it to you at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I just need to see if it's even with the flow line of the pipe or not.
Yeah, you can't see the pipe from where I'm talking about. But,
Okay.
you know, it's kind of like some of the grass is growing in or slid down, and so you might want to level it off a little bit.
Okay, thank you. We'll look into that.
Any further discussion from council? Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stokes, welcome to the meeting.
Hello. Well, and I've sat here so quietly because I have nothing to add, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to introduce our new Leisure Services Director. He comes to us as a long-term employee of the town of Jupiter with tremendous experience in parks and recreation and maintenance. So I'd like to Mr. Brian Benton. So, welcome aboard.
Welcome. It's great to have you on board.
And he's been making the rounds, and the residents already have his email, so he's got a plate full already. So we welcome him, and I wish everyone, since it's our last meeting, to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And you, council, and everyone, I appreciate the time I've been here, and looking forward to next year.
Good luck with that. Ms. Williams.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Clarify?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dodd.
Okay, I want to, most people don't realize it, but this last week, the city had their annual awards dinner and banquet, or whatever you want to call it, and I want to thank the city staff. It was an extremely well put on event. They did a great job, the people who worked in the city, on putting it together. So I'd like to thank the city staff for that. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to everyone.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Iovino.
I'd just like to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for all the work that staff did as far as budget and some of the other things this year. I know you guys have had a very difficult job with, the school resource officer and some of the other things, so thanks so much.
Mr. McFarland.
Yes, I had Dr. Katie Nall, who's the program director over there at Indian River State College. She asked me to mention that they have a new computer system for registering for classes, and people might find it a bit challenging. But this campus is still open until December 14th, and then it's reopening January 2nd, and I guess they have some classes starting January 7th and then January 22nd. And I know I've talked to Casey Lumsford, who's the provost marshal. He would like to come forward and just give a presentation, because there are a lot of great classes that are offered there there's a lot of high school students who are doing dual enrollment, as well as older people going back to school taking part-time classes, and they do offer a lot of classes there.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
All right. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right, thank you very much. Council, I'd like to express my
gratitude to everyone up here for the last year. It's been a really great year. We've had some issues that we've had to deal with that have been a bit contentious, but for the most part, we've been able to work through them because I believe that everyone up here does what they do because we love Sebastian, and I think the end goal is the same for all of us. So thank you for the pleasure of serving with you for the last year. And staff, I would like to thank you for the hard work that you've put in over the last year. You make our job so much easier because of what you guys do for this community. And then I'd like to tell the citizens of our community, I wish you a very happy and prosperous new year and a Merry Christmas. And I look forward to another year with this council on board to continue doing great things in the community. Madam Vice Mayor?
Yep, just Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
All right, thank you all.
Be safe.
We are adjourned.